Right. Right. Right? Right. So, this is going to be a rough one, because I said I'd get it out this week, but it is Friday night and I'm in work all weekend. So we're going to do it. I read 18 books in February, which is good going, you know? Seeing as I was going to go for 36 this year, that's a lot of feckin' books. Admittedly, 12 of them were plays, 6 of them were non-plays, and within those plays there are 2 of those books which are collections. One of them is Chekhov, which is 5 plays, and the other is Sarah Kane, which is 6, and so, you know, that's a lot of plays. But I still have opinions and thoughts. So, how did the month begin? Started off by reading Fleabag. I'd never read Fleabag before. I'd seen the National Theatre streaming of it, and I've seen bits and bats of the TV show. I really enjoy it. I think it's fun. Saying that, I did give the script, I've been nervous about saying this, but a 3 out of 10. Just because I think this is one of those plays that really benefits from being seen in performance. I think on the page you lose the charm of the performance, particularly when it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge doing it. There is so much charm there that it disarms you to some of the more, I don't want to say aggressive, but like some of the bits of the personality that are, you know, difficult to see and difficult to deal with. Yeah, I think it's one of those that I'd only read the script if you've seen it. Because if you read the script without seeing it, I don't think you'd be interested in watching it as much. Maybe that's just me not quite getting it, and that's more than fair. That's more than likely what's happened here, but you know, that was alright. And then I read Black Watch by Gregory Burke. This is a play that was put on by the National Theatre of Scotland in 2008. It's about the Black Watch Regiment of the Scottish Army. It's based between interviews with them, time in Afghanistan, all that kind of good stuff. This is a play that I watched last year in uni, and I gave this a 7 out of 10. It's a really fun script. It's written in Scots dialect, particularly in like Aberdeenshire Highland Scots, which is wonderful and difficult to read if you've not encountered it before. It takes a bit of time, especially as a dyslexic. Part of me was like, is that the spelling, or am I just going mad? But yeah, 7 out of 10 for that. I'm going to try and rattle through these kind of quick. Next, The Decay of Lying by Oscar Wilde. I bought this just because I liked the title, and it was Oscar Wilde. And I was like, well, if anything is going to be good, it's going to be The Decay of Lying by Oscar Wilde. And there were some good points in it, some less good points. I did give this a 6 out of 10, just because there were some really good points in it. It's always a pleasure to read Oscar Wilde, but both parts of The Decay of Lying are like excerpts from plays, and I think they're better off within the context of those plays, personally. So that's a 6 out of 10. How to Do Nothing by Jenny, I'm going to say Odell? Odell. I gave this a 7 out of 10. I saw this on a few people's wrap-ups of last year, and they all said that it read like an academic paper. And if there's one thing I enjoy, it's an academic paper. Love them. I'm a big fan. So I had to get it, and I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. I think it was fascinating, and yeah, it is a different angle from what you think reading the title, but I think it's really interesting, really important. I really like how personal it is for something that I think is kind of in the sociology kind of bracket, I would put it. Yeah, I really think that's a refreshing change for academic papers and sociology texts, for them to be a bit more personal. Then Utopia by Thomas More. This was a 5 out of 10. I'm starting to reevaluate my ranking of Fleabag, actually. I think Fleabag may have actually been a 6 out of 10, and I was just not in a good mood when I wrote my list. Because this was fine. This may actually, I've written 5 out of 10, but this may actually be a 4 out of 10. Not that it's bad, but just because I'm not reading philosophy in any particular order, or any particular, like, heritage is the word, but like, you know, I'm not reading it in like the order that ideas may have been presented. So reading a text that was written in, I think, the 1500s meant that some of the ideas that he presents I've already seen expanded upon or deconstructed by other philosophers. I really should get some sort of order together with the route I go through philosophy, but it's just probably not going to happen at any point soon. Then Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. And this is my dad's favourite play, as far as I'm aware. It's his favourite play. And I read it looking for showcase scenes, and I love it. I love that style of dialogue. I really like the speed of it. Something that I really like in actors is the way they attack text, and Wait for Godot is a perfect example of text that needs to be attacked. You cannot take time between the lines because time is specified. There are pauses put in for point, and for those pauses to be earned and to be worth something, the rest of the text has to be attacked. And Waiting for Godot is that kind of play. I had such a good time. I actually laughed reading it, which does not happen often when you're reading plays. I tell you, a lot of the plays that I read, particularly the ones I read this month, bit dark, not many laughs, not many jokes, but Waiting for Godot, really enjoyed it. I really want to do Lucky's monologue. I think it's Lucky. Yeah, he does this monologue that's meant to be delivered incredibly fast, and I really want to attempt it at some point. I'd love to do Waiting for Godot as an actor, but I think normally people do it kind of later in their careers, so I'm gonna have to wait maybe 25 years or something, by which point I'll be 48 and maybe closer to the age where, you know, Godot can be attempted, and closer to the skill set. I don't think at this point in my acting career I'm as equipped to tackle Godot as I would like to think I am. So that was really fun. That's a 10 out of 10. Another 10 out of 10 straight out of the bat. You will have seen this in my 8 plays in a day video. This is Lemons, 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 Lemons by Sam Steiner. I was recommended this play years ago and have only recently picked it up, and I completely get why it was recommended to me. It's so clever, non-linear storytelling, which I think is always fun, and a two-hander, which I think is always interesting and always fun. That's why I like probably Godot so much, because it's basically a two-hander. You've only got 2 other characters that come in, and they only come in passing, whereas Lemons, 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 Lemons is just 2 people. It kind of reminds me a bit of Constellations that I read a few years back, but it's a great play, highly recommend, 10 out of 10. Then Pomona by Alistair McDowall. This was a 7 out of 10. I'd read this in 2014, I want to say, and you know, it's good. It's one of maybe my favourite plays that I've read in the past 5 years. I think it's really fun. It's nice to see something set in Manchester. Yet again, non-linear storytelling, which is really cool. It would be a devil to stage, and I really want to attempt staging it at one point. I think I said this in my 8 plays in a day video. I really want to attempt to tackle Pomona at some point, but we'll see if that ever gets to happen, because I don't think it's put on very often. Then Arcadia by Tom Stoppard. We're still in that 8 plays kind of bracket. This I really enjoyed, but I think I need to revisit. I've got it down to a 7 out of 10, but it may have been on my first passing a 5 out of 10. I don't think I took it in. I think by the time I tackled Arcadia in that day, I'd already read, I think this was my 7th play, and my brain was not all there, and I think to grasp it fully, I need to revisit it properly, so I can't give like a proper review. You know, 7 out of 10, because Tom Stoppard is always fun. Then finally, Plays by Anton Chekhov. I gave this a 6 out of 10 just because this is a collected works, and there are some that I enjoy more than others. I didn't really like Uncle Vanya or Ivanov, but I did really enjoy Three Sisters and Cherry Orchard. So you kind of got to average that out. But I talked about this in my 8 plays video. Then I read Animal Farm by George Orwell. Great. A lot of people that I know read this in high school, and I was in Set 1 English, not to brag, but so I didn't read it. Didn't read it in high school. We tackled something else, I can't remember what, which is a shame because I would have loved to read this. I think it's fascinating. I can really see it staged, and I'm sure there's a play of it. I'm certain there is a play of it somewhere, but yeah, I can really see it staged. And another one I'd love to do. This was an 8 out of 10. And then moving on, more animals. Equus by Peter Shaffer. This is an infamous play. I think it's only been done twice in its existence in the West End, and the same for Broadway, I think. But I think the original Broadway run was a couple of years. Like, it's a very good play by the incredible Peter Shaffer, who also wrote Amadeus, which we'll get to. And this is actually what I ended up doing for my showcase. And fascinating piece of theatre. Incredibly difficult to wrap your head around fully. I still, even though I've worked on a part of it for the past 3 weeks, I still haven't got my head fully around it, and I don't think I ever will. I don't think you ever do with a play like this. This was a 9 out of 10. 9 and not 10, I think, just because, we'll get to, when we get to Amadeus, I'll be able to explain it better. But yeah, 9 out of 10. Then The Pillowman by McDonagh. Whoo! I'd seen bits of this done a few years back, and it was brutal to watch, very difficult to watch. And then I read it and I was like, okay, that's why. It's still difficult to read. Yeah, it's difficult to read, difficult to watch, difficult to digest, but fascinating. I'm devastated that there is not a recording of the National Theatre's 2006, I want to say, production of it, which starred David Tennant as Cacciatorian and Jim Broadbent as Topolsky. And I love Jim Broadbent. I think he's amazing. I will watch him do anything, so the fact there's not a recording of that. Similar to how there's not a recording of the Ian McKellen Amadeus with Tim Curry playing Mozart. Why was that not recorded? I know it was the 80s, but still, come on! We gotta have it. Then I took a break from plays, and I read Fake Accounts by Lauren Oyler. It's spelled Oyler, I think Oyler. And I bought this, I knew nothing about it going in. It's a very new release, I think it was only put out early this year. And I didn't know anything about it. I went in kind of blind. I bought it because I really liked the cover, which hopefully you're seeing around here. And I was very impressed. Very impressed. I gave it a 6 out of 10 just because I really liked the first few chapters. And the middle, I was kind of like, okay. And then the end. Ooh, there's something, I'm not going to give spoilers, but there's something that happens at the end of the book that surprised me. And I raced through the end because I was ravenous to find out what was going on. That was really, yes, that's a 6 out of 10 just because the middle I felt dragged a little. Not enough for me to go, this is hell. It's not like Moby Dick. And then the end was just so like, whoa, because something happens that affects the way you view the rest of the plot, and it's very good. Really, really liked that. Then I read Angels in America by Tony Kushner, because it got put on National Theatre at Home. That production has Andrew Garfield, Russell Tovey and Nathan Lane. What a script! What a play! I'd love to play Pryor at some point. I love all of it. Nathan Lane's performance is formidable, and I basically read this before watching. So I read the script and then watched. Just because that felt right with Angels in America, just because it's 7.5 hours when you watch the play. When you watch the plays, because there's Millennium Approaches and Perestroika. And Millennium Approaches is 3.5 and Perestroika is basically 4. I think it's 3:57. So it's an undertaking, and I wanted to kind of know the mechanics of it going in. And then I read it and I was like, how on earth do you stage this? There's a point where the stage direction calls for a book to burst through the floor of the stage and burst into flames before vanishing without a trace. How? How are you meant to do this? And the answer is with a budget. I'm so used to working without a budget that I'm just a bit like, people have money for things? Whoa. It's a big play, like it's chunky, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's really interesting. And that's one of the plays that's on my list that I'd love to do one day, and I would love to play Pryor. Or Lewis. I think Lewis would be fun. Yeah, I think Lewis would be fun. Maybe when I'm older, Roy Cohn, but I mean, I'll have to, once again, I'll have to be heading into my 50s, maybe even in my 50s to play that, so that's not on the cards for now. I have no idea how I would direct it, because there's just stuff in there that is difficult to touch. Yes, that was a 9 out of 10. Amadeus by Peter Shaffer. This was a 10 out of 10. Obviously. It is my favourite play, I will give it that. And I'm in love with the production that has Lucia Mesmati and Adam Gillan on National Theatre at Home. I think that production is phenomenal. It's everything I love to see in theatre. I adore it. I think it's just astounding what they do with that text and the way Lucia Mesmati plays with it in a way that you don't see in, say, like the F. Murray Abraham version. That's not saying he's bad. I think the film is incredible, and I really like his reading of the play that you can find on YouTube. But the way Lucia Mesmati plays with it is just phenomenal. There's a few performances where you can tell the actor is having a great time doing it. Like, a case in point for this is Scarlett Johansson in Jojo Rabbit. You can tell that she is having a great time playing it. I don't know if that's true, but I like to think it is, and I think she is. And yeah, it's just, and you can tell with this that Lucia Mesmati is just enjoying embracing that text, and Shaffer's writing is so good, and I like the fact that his casting was like the last decision Peter Shaffer made before he passed away, and you can tell he has that weight on him that like this is Shaffer's last involved production, and the performance he gives is remarkable because the job of transporting the audience to 1700s Vienna rests almost entirely on the shoulders of Salieri as a performance. And the play is almost essentially a monologue, really, that goes interspersed with scenes, is how I look at it. And he does a fantastic job of bringing that together. And just, he has a charm and a wit about his presentation of the character that is astounding to watch. And it is like watching actual magic, because you don't for a second doubt that he is Salieri. And there's a few performances like that where you're just like, I have no doubt. Like Andrew Garfield in Angels of America. I don't doubt for a second that Pryor is a prophet. Every time he says, I am a prophet, you're like, yeah, you are. And that, I mean, that's what great actors do. That's what great actors do, isn't it? Like, you believe them. And any actor who's very successful is there because they are believable to watch, and that's because they put the work in and they do enjoy the performance. But with Lucian Masmati as Salieri, you can tell he's like, it's almost like he's savouring. There's a point where he actually winks down one of the cameras, which I imagine on a non-filmed performance he just does that to an audience member, but I like that it's down one of the cameras, and normally I'd hate that, but with him I'm like, yeah, he gets to do that. Anyway, that's enough gushing. I then read Sarah Kane's complete plays in a complete change of tone. This is a collection of 6 scripts that Sarah Kane wrote, including 448 Psychosis, which is kind of her, I would say, her most famous piece, just because of the history around it. And reading Sarah Kane is interesting because obviously you hear so much about her before you encounter her work, really. And when I was 18 or so, first getting really into kind of how theatre works, I encountered her work and I didn't get it. I didn't get why it was interesting. I felt it was vulgar, all of those things that the Daily Mail probably wrote about her in the 90s. And now that I've had 5 years of learning, 5 years from then of learning my craft and learning how theatre work and broadening my aspects of theatre and the way I think of theatre and getting more involved in more contemporary things, I now get Sarah Kane. Or at least I think I get it. I at least can now enjoy it. This is a 6 out of 10 just because, like with Chekhov, there are some that I enjoyed more than others. My favourite was probably Crave. I think Sarah Kane's work is at its best the more representational and experimental it is. My least favourite is probably Phaedra's Love. I didn't really enjoy that one as much, but I can get why it's an interesting story to tell. Obviously Blasted and Cleansed are both fascinating and brutal in equal measure. I really wish I had been able to see the production of Cleansed that Katie Mitchell directed, because there is that question with Sarah Kane work, is how do you do some of it? And obviously the answer is you can't do some of it, and that's why I think Crave is something that I want to direct someday, just because there is nothing set about how it's meant to be done, therefore you can do anything, and that is terrifying and reassuring in equal measure, because at the same time you don't have to have someone have their hands cut off and their feet cut off and their tongue cut out. You don't have to do that, but you have to figure out what are you going to do. And then finally I read What is Existentialism by Simone de Beauvoir. I can't speak French. Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir. And this was another 6 out of 10. It's another one that I quite enjoyed, but I didn't get as much out of it as I think maybe I will in a couple of years when I've read even more philosophy. I'll tell you what though, this cover design, fantastic. I'm going to see who did the cover design. David Pearson did the cover design. Oh, I believe he does the cover design for almost all of the Pegging Great Ideas series, but this is maybe his best work in my opinion. I'll see if that will do anything. But I think this is, that's clever just to do that. And, I think it's really fascinating. I've read a reasonable amount of, at least I think I've read a reasonable amount of existentialist stuff. The Citizen to Death that I read earlier this year, end of last year I think, was really good, and that was kind of my gateway drug into existentialism. I don't know enough about it to really comment on whether this is good or not, which is why I think I will come back to it once I understand more about philosophy. But it was really good. And that is all the books I read in February. I'm sorry this has been a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the books that I read, but you gotta do what you gotta do, right? What the fuck? That's not how you speak. Yeah, I'm sorry this has been a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the books that I read, but I'm sleepy. I want pizza. Next week is another reading vlog of the first book that I've read in March, which is Trotsky's History of the Russian Revolution. It's bloody massive. I've finished it now. I'm like beyond reading it now, and it's big. So look out for that. And I'll see you next time.